so free. Your feathers of fire light the sky, and your spirit is one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motion can make the continents ring. Yet in all your might and glory, vanished from the sky. Even just another story with millions of man-made lives. They tell us how you fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. And my guest today is John DiNardo, day 2. We're talking about Planet X, and actually probably a little bit more than Planet X. We're going to be talking about how you can, what's coming, what we're expecting. But you know, there's been 3,600 years or so since the last time something like this happened. And so we don't really know. There are written records about what's happened. They tried to tell you, but you know, over time and with propaganda, that gets distorted. Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, Clay. Thanks for inviting me.
Glad to have you back again. You know, this is an important issue, and it almost falls into the you know, conspiracy theory category, along with chemtrails, and you know, it's not talked about in the mainstream media, is it? It was 50 years ago, but not now.
Yes, when the initial discovery was made of Planet X back in 1983, the scientists and astronomers were elated and proud to have discovered this. This had been thought. This unseen gravitational pulling force on the outer planets had been thought for 200 years by astronomers around the world. And of course, this was a proud moment for scientists. However, they were quickly muzzled, but not quickly enough, because they did get the information out in several major, largest news publications in the United States. The New York Times, January 30th, 1983, Washington Post, where they actually discovered it December, 11 months later, in December of 1983. And then all of a sudden, of course, national security agencies put a lid on all discussion of the subject, because, of course, you could even attribute an altruistic motive to that by reasoning that the world would go into panic, it would destroy the economy of the nations of the world, and it would be far too premature to start really worrying about it in 1983. But here we are now in 2011, this object, according to what many people believe was murdered, Dr. Harrington, the chief astronomer of the United States Naval Observatory. Dr. Harrington had photographic evidence that he had obtained from a near South Pole telescope in New Zealand, actually, that showed that this object was huge. It's a big baby star, and it is cruising in toward our inner solar system from deep space. He was murdered, many believe, by a rapid onset cancer, esophageal cancer. He died in a matter of a couple of weeks after being very healthy and vigorously and enthusiastically engaged in trying to relay his findings to the world. Never got those findings out. Was never able to publish the telescopic photographs. Those photographic plates were somehow buried. No one ever spoke of them again. Even after Dr. Harrington died, no one ever mentioned the result of his telescopic viewing of this planet from New Zealand. So there's great evidence that he was murdered, because after all, if a man dies and he's about to release the most earth-shattering information about an incoming brown dwarf star that will devastate Earth by its gravitational pull. Don't you think that even though he may have died, someone's going to pick up the ball and present the evidence to the world? Well, that should have happened, but no one ever did. Dr. Thomas Van Flandern, Dr. Harrington's colleague, was threatened. At first, we have evidence that he was threatened, because at first he was talking about Planet X, and then after Dr. Harrington died, he refused to comment on it at all. And we have other scientists, too, who have mysteriously shut their mouths, who were beginning to talk about it and became quiet. Well, it goes on and on. I'm surrounded, I'm encompassed here with notes, books about Planet X, and pages that I've photocopied from news magazines and newspapers, and all kinds of handwritten notes, books all around me, and I would just like to quickly go through just to give you an idea of tremendous potpourri of information that exists on this subject. I'm just going to give you headline bulletins, not even get into detail because we don't have the time. So I've got New York Times article 1983 titled "Clues Get Warm in the Search for Planet X." I've got U.S. News and World Report, the third largest news magazine in the United States. U.S. News and World Report, September 10th, 1984, article titled "Planet X, is it really out there?" I'll just read you a bit from this article. Shrouded from the sun's light, mysteriously tugging at the orbits of Uranus and Neptune, is an unseen force that astronomers suspect may be Planet X, a 10th resident of the Earth's celestial neighborhood. Last year, the Infrared Astronomical Satellite, IRAS, circling in a polar orbit 560 miles from the Earth, detected heat from an object about 50 billion miles away. Well, that was 1984. It's a lot closer now. That is now the subject of intense speculation. Quote, "All I can say is that we don't know what it is yet," says Jerry Neugebauer, director of the Palomar Observatory for the California Institute of Technology. Well, Jerry Neugebauer is not really telling the truth there when he says we don't know what it is, because 11 months earlier they were much more honest and forthcoming in the New York Times article at the launching date of this infrared astronomical satellite. They actually told us the name of it, Planet X, and they went into the whole history of how this planet has its gravitational pull has been observed, and therefore its, what you might call its shadow, has been observed by astronomers for 200 years, and now they were sending up the IRAS satellite primarily to discover Planet X. That was the main purpose of its mission, and now they're saying, oh, we don't know what it is, 11 months later when they discovered it. This indicates to me that the National Security Agency told them to reduce the transparency of the information, cloud it a little bit, and now they've changed. 11 months later at the discovery of it, front page Washington Post, I've got the actual photocopy of the newspaper article right in front of me. Front page, Washington Post, December 30th, 1983. I'll email you this photocopy of the JPEG file. Title, Mystery Heavenly Body Discovered. Written by Thomas O'Toole, Washington Post staff writer. Quote, a heavenly body, possibly as large as the giant planet Jupiter, and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of this solar system, has been found in the direction of the constellation Orion by an orbiting telescope aboard the U.S. Infrared Astronomical Satellite. So mysterious is the object that astronomers do not know if it is a planet, a giant comet, a nearby protostar, that's a brown dwarf star, that never got hot enough to become a star, or a distant galaxy so young that it is still in the process of forming its first stars, or a galaxy so shrouded in dust that none of the light cast by its stars ever gets through. We see all the scattered disinformation that has been appended to this whole truth about Planet X. They're saying, oh, we don't know what it is. It could be a galaxy, it could be a cloud, it could be anything. And they, of course, include truth in one truthful aspect, which is it is a brown dwarf star.
Yeah.
So there's where the lies began.
Smudge on the camera. It's just a smudge on the camera. You know, we'll fix that. Yeah.
Well, actually, they what they did was just deliberately ignore the entire subject. And I understand from Mark Hazelwood that they actually posted a reversal of that story, where they reversed the entire message about 6 days later and said, "Oh, we made a mistake. It really wasn't anything at all. We thought we saw something, but we didn't." And then ever since then, except for this U.S. News and World Report article, which came out in September of 1984, nothing else was ever said about it. Well, again, you would expect them to remain silent, because why cause panic around the world? Why have people, committing suicide, changing their buying patterns, and causing a collapse of the economy in 1983, when this thing is not going to get here until sometime in the 21st century? So I could understand what they did, but again, by understanding their rationale, we could still understand the truthfulness, the factuality, that this thing is coming in and the government has obviously covered it up. Now we've got more facts. We've got deep underground military bases that Governor Jesse Ventura has actually visited one in Cheyenne Mountain, within the bowels of the Denver, of the Rocky Mountains near Denver. And his Jesse Ventura's producer, Michael Braverman, went down into this underground city. It was viewed on True TV a couple of years ago. You can see it on YouTube by just typing in Apocalypse 2012 Jesse Ventura. You'll see all 6 segments. I would advise you to go to part 6 of this 1-hour broadcast, part 6, and you'll see the underground visitation, where Michael Braverman asks the chief of security down there, Colonel Wynn, who has a whole military force. Michael Braverman asked Colonel Wynn, when the Earth begins to heat up and is ravaged by solar storms, will the people be allowed to come underground with you to escape the scorching, the solar scorching? And he says, when those, I don't know how many tons, steel doors are slammed shut, you can knock all day long. You're getting in, and we had the highest force of highly trained military personnel with the most sophisticated weapons to defend this facility against the American people. And that's basically what Colonel Wynn replied to Michael Braverman. So we know they're going underground to protect themselves. They might say, well, could be because of a nuclear war. And yeah, that's one possibility. But the evidence is so broad. We have Philip Schneider, who was an American geologist in the mid-90s, a very brilliant man, an engineer, structural engineer and geologist. He quit his job building secret military bases for the U.S. government, and he gave over 30 lectures in 1995. He eventually was murdered. He actually said, and announced to his wife and to many others, he said, "If I die, you know I've been murdered. There's no way I'm going to commit suicide."
Especially difficult, to commit suicide with a piano wire around your own neck or something, isn't it?
Right. In this case, I think he was, I don't know what it was. I forget I've got the book here, people can look this up, PlanetX Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide. You can just look that up, PlanetX Forecast. That should be enough to get you to the book that has the whole story on Philip Schneider. But it says here he co-invented the shape charge blasting technique and the rock deflagration technologies, and was the son of a former Nazi U-boat commander. After World War II, his father helped to build the Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered submarine. The laser rock deflagration devices that Philip Schneider invented are used to create underground tunnels and complexes by melting and agatizing rock. Used, I'm reading from the book by Marshall Masters, PlanetX Forecast. Quote, used in tunnel boring systems, they can bore a 28-foot wide by 28-foot tall shaft at the rate of 7 miles per day. To clear the tunnel of haulage that the device did not magnetize, workers would bore vertical holes to one side of the lateral shaft and use hoists. This would reduce the chance of rock dust getting into the machinery or the laborer's lungs or masks. Also, they would bore ventilation holes for fresh air. By working together, machines could accomplish a 7-mile rate while minimizing pollution. So it goes on to say, let me skip a few of this. The very behavior caused the 1979 alien-human war of Dulce. I won't go into that. This because that's very hard to believe. This is when it's the words.
But let me stop you. There's something you said there. These boring machines. Now, I've seen pictures of them with the guy standing in front of them. These things are huge, and they are capable of tunneling through solid rock in hours for miles, right?
Right, 7 miles a day.
7 miles a day.
Foot wide by 28 foot.
And the thing that was used to it's not just a boring machine. They actually burn through the rock or disintegrate the rock, right?
Right. It says here that it's melted, actually. I believe did it say nuclear powers? I have to check that again. But it melts the rock.
Well, let's see. How long would it take one of those devices? Not necessarily in the machine. How long would it take one of those devices to, melt concrete? To bring down, say, the World Trade Center?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, the World Trade Center, that might have been a similar technology or a related technology. We know there were explosives planted on various floors of the World Trade Center, explosives carefully placed and wired by demolition experts days in advance. Now, that's one method that was used to take down the building, but now there's surfacing evidence that direct-use energy weapons were also used. Dr. Judy Wood, very highly acclaimed and highly credentialed metallurgist and professor at Clemson University, I believe.
I've been meaning to get her on my show, but I haven't had a chance to get in touch with her or review that. Bring me up to what she says, because I think what we saw with the World Trade Center, personally, I mean, they did close it down. They did do something there. They had crews working there, and the security. They closed the buildings down for days.
That's right. It was for an entire weekend. No one was allowed in there at all. It was an unprecedented event, and that's what gave the Israeli Mossad and U.S. intelligence operatives a chance to wire the building. We know Israeli Mossad was probably the mastermind behind the whole thing, because the leaders of Israel have nothing to do with the Jewish people. They're totally ignorant, just like the American people are totally ignorant of what's going on in their government. But at that, prior to the World Trade Center attack, Israel was getting a lot of criticism for its brutality and atrocious behavior against the Palestinians. And they thought that this would be a good way to change public opinion against the Arabs, because people were leaning toward the Arabs. And so
even Netanyahu
said this was a good thing.
Yeah,
even Netanyahu. This was a good thing, he said. And Sharon, too.
A good thing for Israel.
Right. Well, anyway, we're getting off the subject. I've got so many. Let me just scan through many different quick bulletin items regarding Planet X. This subject is so diverse. It's a whole universe of information in its own.
Somebody just was asking on the chat room about the Earth reversing course, and I wrote this in one of my novels here. I wrote 40 years ago. I wrote that the Earth started going in the opposite direction, and the last time this planet, what I called in my article, was a conjunction, and planets crossing, followed to who knows exactly what happened, because all of our records pretty much were destroyed from the storms and the floods and everything that came with this last passing, approximately 3,600 years ago. Isn't that
right? 36 and a half centuries ago. You know, we have ancient records, though, that from numerous sources. I'm hearing myself echoing severely in the background. But we have numerous ancient historical records from witnesses who survived, stating that, yes, the Earth did reverse its direction. They saw the sun. Some people, some civilizations report that they saw the sun setting, and then immediately the sun began to rise again from that same position. And it has changed direction several times according to these ancient quotations that I have here from various civilizations. Several times it has set in, the sun has risen in the west and set in the east. You know, if you visualize a bowler releasing a bowling ball and throwing a hook, what he does is his hand tangentially is driven upward, lifted upward abruptly, so as to put a spin on that ball as it's being released. Similarly, there's a distant gravitational force that a passing large body can exert upon Earth. Earth would be like a bowling ball, and this large body with its gravitational force at a distance, sort of similar to a magnetic force, would actually grab a hold, lock onto Earth, and pull it in the opposite, revolve it in the opposite direction. This has happened. The book of Joshua we talked about yesterday, chapter 10. God had ordained from the beginning of time that at this point in time he would have a large celestial body, a comet, come by at the time that Joshua and his army were attacking and defeating the Amorites. But the sun was going down. There was not enough time to totally wipe out the fleeing enemy. So Joshua asked God to keep the sun up, leave the sun shining for several hours. And as a result, we saw prolonged sunshine. And at the same time, well, this was because this planet was coming by, this comet came by and paused the rotation of the Earth. At the same time, Earth was bombarded by flaming rocks, boulders, which wiped out the fleeing enemy. These boulders were directed only on the enemy, not on the Israelites. And of course, these Israelites are not the Israelites that we know today, and all of it is spiritual too. God tells us that the Israelites of today are those who, it doesn't matter what your nationality or ethnicity is, you are of Israel if you trust and believe in God the Creator and God the Savior. Well, anyway, these falling rocks accompanied this pausing of the Earth's rotation, which is what you would expect. Because when a passing body comes close by Earth, if it's large enough, several things will happen. One is it will lock on gravitationally and pause the rotation of Earth. That is, overpower the sun. And at the same time, any debris that's going to be naturally gripped and surrounding this passing comet will be sucked in by Earth's gravitational pull. So that explains the stream of machine gun fire of rocks that came pouring down, flaming rocks, because of the frictional heating up of these rocks as they passed through the Earth's atmosphere, as they plummeted to the Earth. So that's the phenomenon you have. That pretty much explains that phenomenon, and we expect to see it again. What the ancients tell us is that some of the first signs, this is from the Colburn Bible, which was written by survivors of the last devastation of Earth 36 and a half centuries ago, and that was at the time of the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt. Well, what some of these survivors tell us in the Colburn Bible is that some of the first signs you'll see, I've got the book right here, but I'll just try to paraphrase it, is that you'll see the stars begin to shift, and it might be a slow process over a period of days and weeks and months where if you're an astronomer, you can look up and say, wow, that constellation is not where it should be. And they begin to wobble a little bit, to change position in the sky. Well, it's not the stars. The stars many light years away are not moving. It's the Earth that's beginning to become unstable because its rotation is slowing down. It's wobbling. Now, the Inuit Indians, of the Eskimos of the north, those people live by the sun because they have don't have much in the way of obstructions of their horizon, and they know just at what time of the year they can go out and fish for their survival, and they know at what time of the year the sun should be up at a particular point on their horizon. And they are stating in articles that you can look up on the internet that the sun is in the wrong place right now at a particular time of the year. Also, people in Greenland were saying, I think last year, reporting that the sun, in Greenland and the northern areas, you don't get, it's parts of the year, it's dark all day long. And at the point of the year when the sun begins to show itself, they know just what day it is. So these people are very highly tuned to the movement of the sun, much more aware than we are of these phenomena. And they say that in Greenland that the sun rose, came into appearance 3 days earlier than it should. We have another phenomenon too that indicates the Earth is becoming helter-skelter in its movement. That is the magnetic pole of the Earth is moving, shifting. Scientists tell us in recent reports over the last year that the Earth's magnetic North Pole has drifted drastically. And then we have aircraft having trouble guiding them, using their guidance systems because the magnetic field is so screwed up. And incidentally, I think there was some kind of turbulence. Now get this. I just heard it on the Weather Channel just a couple of days ago. You heard about the severe turbulence that caused people to come flying out of their seats in airplanes?
No, I hadn't heard about that. The fires in Texas. That's something that could be related, I think.
Oh yeah, all these
the climate changes everywhere. England heated up. They had a heat wave. They had people on the beaches, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is unprecedented. The British are just flabbergasted by this. They say we've never had such heat, not even in the summertime, let alone in October. And they're not dressed for it. I mean, they're wearing heavy clothes. They have to just take their clothes off. It's just incredible. But getting back to this other thing about the aircraft, the Weather Channel, this was big news a few days ago. A couple of aircraft were flying from, Durham, North Carolina, somewhere around there. And they experienced the worst turbulence that has ever been experienced, that I think, in history. Throughout all of history, no other case of turbulence has ever occurred. The passengers who were not belted in, of course they didn't have advance warning, so many of them were not belted in. They flew up to the ceiling because the aircraft dropped like a rock. They said it dropped, I forget, 300 feet in a matter of a couple seconds. Now, that's like a rock. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was an abrupt drop, gravity fall. And these people sitting down, of course, by the inertia, they were upward, and their heads hit the ceiling. There were many injuries on those aircraft. I'm hearing myself echoing severely again.
Yeah, well, that's probably some type of interference here, John. They don't want this information. They don't want this information getting out. So.
Okay, as long as I'm coming through all right, I can deal with my